Thanks, Philip, for that great introduction, and thank you all for being here. I'm gonna riff off of James, and that's a link to my slides. If you want to follow along and you can't see, it's ramonhuidobro.com/teaching-kids. So let's get right to it. So, looking at the slides, I bet you're wondering, who is this? Because I have different hair. And I'll tell you, it's totally not because these slides are out of date. It's because the truth is that that is not me. And to explain who that is, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. 6 years ago, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine. This here is Ramon from the past, working at his computer. Now, Ramon, please be so kind and say hello to the nice people. Now, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You're going to have to forgive him, he's a little shy. But don't let that fool you. Ramon is very happy. He has now entered his second year of being a freelance software developer. He does a little bit of Ruby, a lot of macOS programming, and he's loving every second of it. But after these 2 years, Ramon started to get a little bit of an itch. He wanted to get out there. He saw all of these great meetups, conferences, initiatives like Rails Girls and Rails Girls Summer of Code, and he thought, I want to get out there and I want to share, the things that make me happy about programming with the world. So he did just that. He went to a macOS developer meetup in a hacking space in Vienna, in his hometown of Vienna, and what happened was that he went into this basement, and there were a lot of people who I'm sure were lovely, but they were all speaking German, which, full disclosure, is not my mother tongue. And they were like arguing about Emacs and Vim, and I'm like, I'm just here to talk about macOS. So after like 5 minutes of that, Ramon just kind of gave up, went into his hobbit hole, and just, was sad for a bit. But Ramon thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't try getting into giving out my programming to the entire world, so I'll start in a different angle. And so him and his wonderful wife, girlfriend at the time, started an after-school club called Computer Game Programming. Now, this photo you see here is from the Vienna International School, where I went to school as well, and they were very kind to lend me some laptops and some children to experiment on. No, they are absolutely wonderful, and we were very nice to them. So what's cool about my privilege of doing this at an international school is that I was able to witness a range of very diverse children, not only from different places, but also, the gender ratio was fantastic. I think on several years we had actually more girls than boys, which was awesome to see, and their imaginations were out of this world. I loved it. And so we approached this by telling them, okay, folks, here's what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you to be hackers. And everybody giggles and so talks about Facebook hacking or something. And I said, now I know what you're thinking. I don't mean this guy. I don't mean the businessman in a ski mask, stealing your ones and zeros. I mean a person who knows how to solve problems in an inventive, efficient, and just different way. And so with that attitude, we started, making games with lots of different technologies. The one I used the most with them was this Ruby framework called Gosu. It's also a C++ framework, I believe. So if you have a moment and like to make very simple two-dimensional games, I totally recommend it. It's a lot of fun. So there I was 6 years ago, and I thought, well, I've got this idea. Research is not for me, so I jumped right in. And that, while super fun, came with a couple of problems. Problems that I could have never foreseen because I kind of just jump into things. So first off was having an after-school activity 1 hour every week is kind of hard on a kid. After-school activities can mean they're tired. I'm competing with other subjects like math, history, English, German, et cetera, and I'm only allowed to give them 1 hour of my week. For full disclosure, this is around between 11 and 13-year-olds, right? And it's, I had that hour, and you're probably thinking, well, I could have given them homework, right? Forget it. Like, they would have not wanted homework from an after-school activity. And there were other challenges that came along with that. So the way the after-school activities work at the Vienna International School is that they last for half a year, and then they can renew they can sign up again or go into something else. So the winter semester, I get a ton of people, and then after a while, they would leave to do other things like sports, because it's a summer semester. I totally understand. But you still feel that little bit of a twinge of like, did I mess up? And was I a bad teacher? Did I give them bad habits? And it took me a long time to get over this and realize, no, even if not now, maybe I've planted a seed. And that seed will eventually bloom into a skill. And now when I say skill, I don't mean a career. I mean, automating spreadsheets in the office, stuff like this, a curiosity about how computers work. And so this time, I can tell you, for the first time, a kid that I coached 6 years ago just graduated from high school and is going to study computer science in the Technical University of Vienna, and asked me to help him with his entrance exam. My heart. Thank you. But the thing I did not expect when I was teaching these kids to code was that I would learn some incredibly valuable lessons of how I as a developer can continue working and pick up skills. Let's talk about the first one, breaking things. So first up, if there's one skill that kids have that I wish I still had in me, is this incredible curiosity and tendency to break stuff. I don't have that anymore, and I wish I still had it. So I'll give you an example of what we were doing. We were making a little spacefaring game. You're a little ship, and you're dodging asteroids. And so the kids asked me, Ramon, what's a good speed, right? And I said, don't worry about the numbers themselves, but I'd say something like 20 meters per second, 40 meters per second. That sounds pretty good. But what they ended up doing was putting an incredibly high speed. And this I found in a lot of different places. For example, they would ask me, Ramon, how many enemies do you think I should place on the screen? And I said, I think four or five, that's pretty good. And in my head I'm thinking, I'm aiming low because they're surely gonna go for 10. I was wrong. We're making a little jump and run game. You play as a little character, kind of like Super Mario. You jump, you collect things. And they asked me, Ramon, what's a good force to jump off the ground? And honestly, at this point, you get the idea, right? At the beginning, this used to really stress me out because I was like, why, they would get annoyed that their game wouldn't work or something. And I sat down. I remember I sat down after the winter semester and I seriously gave this a good amount of thought. And I decided, you know what? This is great. This is how I work sometimes. When I want to find out how a framework works or how a programming language works, I just go for it. And the cool thing that I noticed is that the kids were also having new conversations with me. I would ask them, so, okay, your game is running extremely slowly. Why do you think that is? And they tell me, my laptop can't handle this. And it really settled in my head how important it is to have a good time with what you're doing. And never lose that passion for just playing around and breaking things. My next lesson, full disclosure, the code, there's very little code in these slides, but they are in Ruby. But it should be fine, I promise. So, I'll show you an example of what I was teaching the kids, right? I was trying to teach them about how procedural code works. And I tell them, all right, everybody, what does this piece of code do, right? We define an variable called Anna, and we would print out the value of that variable. And I asked them what it did, and they correctly said, well, it prints out Anna. And I'm like, right you are. Now, how about this piece of code? Print out the variable name, and then we define its value. And they said, well, it prints out Anna. And I told them, well, actually, it throws out an error. And I explained to them, see, this is how stories work, right? You need to go word by word, line by line, from beginning to end. And then one kid goes, yeah, all right, but hold on. Ramon, have you ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure story book? If you don't know what these are, you would read a little bit and then be given a choice. Do you want to go this way or that way? And then it would tell you what page to go to. And what ends up happening is that you jump all over the book. So they're like, are you making stuff up, Ramon, or what? And honestly, they were right. Another example. So we've been working with very simple programs for a time, and then, I think to myself, they're gonna love this. Here come the games with graphics. So I tell them, all right, everybody, let me teach you a little bit about how coordinates work. Every character on the screen has an X coordinate for its horizontal position, and they have a Y position, a Y coordinate for their vertical position. So now you're probably wondering, what happens when both coordinates are 0? I told him, well, it's at the top left, sorry. And when a different kid interrupts me and goes, hold on. See, in math class, I learned that the origin should be at the bottom left. Why are you computer scientists making this so hard? And frankly, I had no idea. I never wondered. I ended up looking it up. You know what it is? This is a CRT screen. I still use them, but I bet a couple of you have probably never seen one of these, at least in real life. And the way these worked is that they would display a line from top to bottom, left to right, like this. So it made sense to have the origin be at the top left. I did not know this, and I was so glad that I went and had that curiosity again to go further into the things that I accept as, yeah, that's what it does, but not how it works. The other thing is about, my next lesson is about how important practice is in what you do. So I would go in and I think like, all right, everybody, this is what we're going to work on today. This is the concept that I'm introducing to you. Now, go ahead, use it. And they wouldn't know how to proceed. The problem is that I didn't give them concrete examples that they should use in order to start working with this new concept. So we switched it up. This was my wife's idea. She said, how about we break down a whole lesson into a series of small challenges? Make an array with this many enemies. Add an enemy to this array. Move each enemy 5 pixels to the left. This sort of thing. And at first, the kids are kind of like, come on, I just want to make explosions. And what happened is that I would start quizzing them, and after a few sessions, they got this sense of competitivity. They wanted to defeat me, which is totally fine. So they'd start like competing with me, being like, I know, and they'd like speak over each other. Like, don't worry, I had it under control, but it was still cool to see. And it reminded me how important practice is. You go back, you try again and again, and you'll end up with a skill that can last you for a lifetime. Full disclosure, none of these drawings are done by me, and I still cannot draw. Let's talk about the next point. This is one of my favorites. How important it is to make a distinction between simple and ease of understanding. Because what would happen is, we'd be, warning, some more Ruby code. Here's a simple update method, sorry, not simple. Here's a method that makes the player move to the left, to the right. We take the player's X position and move it 5 pixels to the right. And the kids saw it and thought, yeah, this is good. And I said, hold on, I'm gonna knock your socks off. Check this out. Bam, look at how simple that is. Much less writing. I go like, one of the kids goes, I actually prefer the other one. And I'm like, well, that's just you. What does everybody else think? They all agreed. Took me a while because I kind of like making these, sometimes I like nesting lots of function calls into one line and it looks super cool. I go back and stand back and I go like, yeah, I'm a software engineer. But it's so important to remember that a piece of code that can look simple to you can look complicated to someone else. This piece of code, what it does is that it makes the player either move 5 pixels to the left or stay at the leftmost side of the screen. It takes the maximum between these two values. And I think to myself, this is great Ruby code. I'm very happy with this. But sometimes it's just more important to like break it down, maybe have a little bit more verbosity for the sake of understandability. Something that I want to do more in my daily coding life. My last lesson. So, showing and reading code. So here's the thing. Put yourself in my shoes. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. 3:45 in the afternoon. I've got 15 minutes left. Everybody's code is broken. I'm stressed, and I'm like, and they go like, Ramon, what do I do? It's broken. It's broken. And I'm like, and I see the error, and I'm like, you could fix it, right? And they're like, no, I don't have to. So what I do is like, okay, just this once, I'm gonna do it for you. So what happens? After maybe 2 sessions of this, the kids start, instead, when they find a problem, they just go, hey, it's broken. Have I created a generation of lazy people? I hope not. So here's what's happened. They take a piece of code and be like, it's broken. I don't know. Fix it, Ramon. So, as it was a larger group, I could get some of the kids that had already finished their work or who already were satisfied with their work, and I could tell them, hey, could you go fix them, please? Fix it for them, please? And they would go and fix it. And this started, and I did this a couple of times that I would encourage them to go and help another person who's stuck. And after a while, they would start just doing it voluntarily, going like, hey, yeah, you're missing the end call there. Don't worry about the code. It's just supposed to show that they could find these problems very quickly. And after a while, I didn't even have to do it. They would go around and be like, hey, do you need help? Hey, do you need help? And they'd do it. They would sit down and they would solve problems together. And all of a sudden, I found, without my getting involved, pair programming was happening around me. I was just floored with that. Wow. And the other thing I saw was that now that encouraged me to read other people's code and have a good time while doing so, and pick up on different people's perspectives and styles, and how important that is, how that enhances you and your style. Also, of course, that pair programming is awesome. This is just a couple of the lessons I learned. There's many more that I would love to also talk about with you. But I want to pick up on the most important one for me personally. You see, when I was going to those meetups and getting a little bit intimidated, in some ways I am a very shy person. But by working with kids and seeing how they think, and reminding myself of how important it is for me to be a kid, the biggest thing I took away was confidence. And so after maybe a couple years of teaching kids, I picked up my bag, I kicked back the tears, and I went to my first meetup. And it was terrifying and awesome. I started coaching at events like Rails Girls, and full disclosure, if you can, you should totally go coach at an event like this. If you think you're not an expert at the subject matter, don't worry. You can pick it up as you go. And by answering questions, showing them how you Google for stuff is such a good skill to pass on. Teaching people how to Google for stuff is key. So they ask you a question, you're like, I don't know. Let me just Google it. That is such an important skill to have. I even got the bravery to get up on stage here with you today and give a presentation. If you'd asked me that 7 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. And you start making connections, you start building teams. On the right here is my sister Pilar, who you can see sketchnoting over there. And so what I really want to tell you to do, encourage you to do, no matter your skill level, teach them your skill. It doesn't matter how good you are, you will learn so much from that, because they start looking at different perspectives, and they make you look at these different perspectives. So, I just want to say a quick thanks to my beautiful wife Birgit for her colored drawings, my incredible sister Pilar for her doodles. I want to thank Connie for being on stage with me. I didn't mean to scare you, I'm so sorry. And thank you for your support of me on stage. And to all of you wonderful attendees, I just say thank you.